Everyone imagines the moment when their life will change forever, whether through a lottery ticket, an inheritance, or some unexpected miracle. But have you ever considered that that miracle might actually come at the cost of a terrible mistake? It all began in the Obsidian, a restaurant nestled between the towering skyscrapers of New York, with its dim lighting and porcelain elegance. And at the heart of the story, there was just one waitress, Ada. Ada was 22 years old. By day, she attended psychology lectures, and by night, she cleaned the luxury tables and dealt with the endless demands of the wealthy. On her shoulders, she carried not only her own dreams but the burden of a family shattered years ago by a tragic accident. For her, the Obsidian was just a temporary bridge on the road to her university degree. But there was one person who disrupted her routine every week, at the same time, with the same silence that Mr. Sterling was the most mysterious, most silent customer at the Obsidian. Every Tuesday evening, he arrived precisely at 8 p.m. He always requested the same table, always ordered only a coffee and a serving of truffle risotto. He neither spoke on the phone nor brought anyone with him. His solitude seemed like a humble extension of his wealth. Yet, Ada saw in his eyes, a sorrow so deep that even his elegant suit couldn't hide it. Strangely, whenever Ada approached his table, Mr. Sterling's gaze would avoid hers. It was as if he was afraid to recognize her. That night, everything seemed normal. Ada took his usual order and delivered it. Mr. Sterling ate his meal, as usual, barely touching it, then asked for the check. Ada left the checkbook on the table and turned to walk away, but as she was leaving, a muttered phrase from Mr. Sterling froze her in place. He spoke softly, almost as if to himself. "I hope this is a small beginning to the debt." Ada couldn't tell whether the words were meant for her or for the empty space on the wall. When she turned back to look, Mr. Sterling had already risen from the table and was walking toward the door. With his coat and stylish hat, he vanished into the cold Manhattan night. Ada approached the table to clear it. She opened the checkbook. Normally, customers like him would leave a tip around 10% of the total bill. But the figure she saw at that moment wasn't just a number, it was a series of zeros that would change not only her night but the course of her entire future. The bill was $250. The tip, however, was $1 million. $1 million. The question was, why? Why would this silent, enigmatic millionaire leave such an astronomical sum for a waitress he barely knew? Was it a joke? A mistake? Or was the debt Mr. Sterling referred to truly a matter of settling a terrible secret connected to Ada? In that moment, Ada had received the greatest gift of her life. But soon, she would realize that gift was, in fact, a curse. Ada didn't see the $1 million check as just a piece of paper that night. To her, it was a door, a gateway to the answers she had sought her entire life, to the buried secrets of her past. But opening that door would lead her down a dark path she hadn't anticipated. Ada spent days pondering before going to the bank. Was the money real? Was it a joke? If it was real, what was behind such a large tip? The restaurant management initially thought it was a mistake, but when Mr. Sterling's bank confirmed the check was valid, the reality before Ada loomed like a wall. The $1 million had been deposited into her account, but Ada couldn't touch the money. Generosity didn't align with Mr. Sterling's character. He was a polite but distant man, almost as if he was wrestling with a deep sense of guilt. Ada recalled the phrase he had whispered, "I hope this is a small beginning to the debt." Ada's family had fallen apart 10 years ago. Her father, an honest man working for a small construction company, had been seriously injured in a workplace accident, and the company went bankrupt. Her mother, unable to cope with the grief and the mounting debt, left the city. Since that day, Ada had been alone. The accident reports had dismissed the incident as simple negligence, but Ada had always felt there was more to it. Now, this $1 million tip had turned Ada's suspicions into strong evidence. Mr. Sterling was connected to that accident. Mr. Sterling's full name was Julian Sterling. He was the founder of the Sterling Group, one of the largest real estate and construction conglomerates in Manhattan. Over the years, he had doubled his wealth and was known as a respected businessman. But as Ada began to look into the construction projects from 10 years ago, her heart raced. The accident, the construction site where Ada's father had worked. the subcontractor that owned the site had been abruptly shut down right after the accident. Among the documents, Ada discovered a link showing that the subcontractor's parent company belonged to the Sterling Group. What was even more surprising was that, in the corporate records from the time of the accident, alongside Julian Sterling's name, another name appeared: Nathan Price. Nathan Price had been Sterling Group's head of operations at the time, and was directly responsible for the construction site where Ada's father had worked. Ada realized something she had never questioned before. Since the first day Mr. Sterling visited the restaurant, she had never heard him volunteer his full name. Everyone simply called him Mr. Sterling. Why would a businessman hide the name he used everywhere else? Then Ada finally connected the cold, brutal truth: Julian Sterling had once gone by the name Nathan Price. He had changed his surname and scrubbed his identity clean. Mr. Sterling's silence, his avoidance of Ada's eyes, it all made sense now that he was the man directly responsible for her father's accident. Not simply a millionaire, but a man suffocating under the weight of a buried crime. Conflicting voices clashed inside Ada's mind. On one hand, she held a fortune that could save her life. On the other, that fortune had been bought with her and her family's suffering. Accepting the money, was that a betrayal of my father's case? Or should I use it as a weapon to seek justice? Ada knew she needed an answer from Mr. Sterling, Nathan Price himself. She began searching for him. From the lobby of a luxury corporate tower, she tried to obtain his private number. The phone rang. The caller was not a machine, but Julian Sterling's assistant. Voice effect: Mr. Sterling does not accept calls from unknown numbers. I can take a message. Ada, tell him this: the debt. Nathan Price's debt. And add this as well: my father's name, Erkin. That message was enough to destroy Julian Sterling's peace forever. Ada was no longer an innocent waitress. She had become a hunter seeking justice, and the prey had just realized it had stepped into a trap. Julian Sterling felt the moment the call ended. The guilt he had buried years ago had returned, wrapped inside $1 million check. He had intended the tip as a bribe for silence, a way to keep Ada from ever finding him, but Ada hadn't accepted the money. Instead, she had used it as a clue. For the first time in his life, the millionaire faced an enemy his wealth couldn't protect him from. Ada now held the key to his darkest secret, and Julian Sterling had no idea what this confrontation would cost, or who would pay the price. Julian Sterling now had to make a choice: either confess and save Ada's life along with his own conscience, or bury this secret forever by silencing her. But what would push Mr. Sterling to reach his breaking point? Ada had chosen to use the $1 million tip not as a gift, but as a weapon. Her message had cornered Julian Sterling, Nathan Price. Yet millionaires do not surrender when threatened, they fight. And as Ada hunted her prey, she found herself stepping into a far more dangerous game than she had imagined. Just 24 hours after sending the message, her phone rang. This time, it wasn't the assistant, but Julian Sterling himself. His voice had none of the elegance of his tailored suits, it was tired and ragged. Damar. Sterling, voice effect, on the phone. Ada. You need to meet with me. Alone. We can resolve this without anyone getting hurt. Ada, the only resolution is for you to tell the truth about the accident 10 years ago. Someone already got hurt, Mr. Sterling. And it was me. Now it's your turn. Mr. Sterling, with fear creeping in, listen. I can make you an offer. On top of the $1 million. I can add another $1 million. $2 million. Silence. No records. You just walk away and leave this behind. In that moment, Ada understood the true value of wealth. For Sterling, the cost of 20 years of guilt was merely $2 million. Ada, I don't want your money. My father's name is not for sale, Nathan. Where are we meeting? Sterling knew he had no choice but to face her. He invited Ada to an old marina dock outside the city, isolated, abandoned, and silent. After dark, night fell when they met at the worn, creaking pier. Two people from two different worlds, standing under the weight of a tragedy buried for 10 long years. Damar. Sterling, thank you for coming. Look. I know what you want. And you're right. That accident was my fault. Ada, immediately snapping, a mistake. The simple negligence that cost my father his life was the result of a decision you made so you wouldn't have to sacrifice your profits. You cut safety measures, didn't you? To save money, Mr. Sterling, his face collapsing, yes. I pressured the subcontractor. They needed to cut costs. I was young, ambitious, and believed money could fix everything. When the accident happened, I buried the truth along with my old identity. I abandoned the name Nathan Price and created Julian Sterling. Mr. Sterling, I've lived with that guilt every day, Ada. The tip, it was a beginning. Take the money. You deserve it. I'll give you more. Just go live your life. Please, Ada, then turn yourself in. Tell the truth in court. Do that, and I'll accept the money. Clear my father's name. Sterling shook his head, fear overwhelming whatever remorse he had done him. Sterling, I can't. Back then I was only the head of operations. But I wasn't the only one behind that decision. The board at the time, they want this secret buried with me. They aren't as merciful as I am, Ada. They will destroy you, and me, to keep this quiet. The flash came in an instant. But for Ada and Sterling, that brief burst of light meant everything. Someone had been watching them. Recording them. Sterling's face went ghost-white. Sterling, terrified, panicked, they were here. They heard everything. Ada, you need to leave. Now. They'll hurt you. They'll hurt both of us. Ada, who are they? Who are you talking about? Just then, Mr. Sterling's phone rang. The caller was Monsieur Dubois, the Sterling Group's chief legal officer. Monsieur Dubois, cold, precise, Julian, your sentimental meetings with that waitress are harming the company. We do not want the name Nathan Price resurfacing. That accident was closed forever. Ada, faintly overhearing through the speaker, what do you mean, closed? Monsieur Dubois, I mean this, the girl needs to take the money and disappear. If, by tomorrow morning, she has not vanished with the check, the company will reframe this entire situation as an attempted fraud by you, Julian, claiming Ada tried to extort you. We have the power to manipulate the original accident file as well. Do not forget, Ada, great acts of good often hide greater acts of evil. Mr. Sterling, Ada. I can't protect you. Take the money and run. There's no other way. They can bury this far better than I ever could. Ada was no longer facing just a remorseful millionaire, she was up against a cold, calculated corporate machine determined to silence her. The $1 million tip had become more than a gift, it was now a dangerous burden threatening her life. She was trapped. Either she accepted the money and watched her father's killers walk free, or she risked everything to fight a corporate giant. But how could a waitress defeat Sterling Group and the shadow behind it, Monsieur Dubois? Did Ada even have the one thing Sterling feared most? A recording of his confession. Dubois had underestimated her. Ada had drawn the corporation's wrath the moment she refused the money. Sterling's guilt was one thing, but now she faced a ruthless enemy, Sterling Group and the cold strategist who controlled it from the shadows. But Ada was not just a waitress. She was a law student, and now, with that $1 million check frozen and her future under threat, she was ready to make her boldest, most dangerous move. Dubois wasted no time carrying out his threats. Ada's university scholarship application, previously approved, was suddenly rejected at the last minute without explanation. Then the bank notified her that the $1 million tip had been temporarily frozen due to suspected irregularities. Dubois wanted her cornered. Dependent. Desperate. Narrator, this move stripped Ada of the luxury of using the money. The $1 million check had become nothing more than a piece of paper once again. Dubois's message was clear, take the money or don't fight, but Dubois didn't know one crucial thing. Ada had not gone to the dock empty-handed. With a small pocket recording device she'd bought on a student budget, she had recorded Mr. Sterling's entire confession. Dubois's threats didn't frighten her, they strengthened her resolve. Sterling Group was panicking, and panic meant weakness. Despite the frozen funds, Ada gathered what little savings she had and sought out one of the city's oldest and most relentless attorneys, Eileen. After hearing Ada's story, Eileen was impressed by the young woman's courage. Ada, instead of trying to get the money back, let's use it as bait. Let's force Sterling Group to reopen the accident case. Ada and Eileen initiated a legal process to unfreeze the $1 million. But it was merely a cover. Their real goal was to force Du Bois into action, to make him move, panic, and reveal himself in an attempt to recover the confession Ada was holding. Ada sent Monsieur Du Bois a sharply worded email. In it, she stated that she possessed an audio recording of Mr. Sterling's confession about the accident. And she wanted one final meeting before taking the evidence to the police. The meeting place, the Obsidian restaurant. Ada was returning to the place where everything had started. Monsieur Du Bois approached the table with confident, deliberate steps. He seemed to have forgotten Ada had once been a waitress. Now, he saw an opponent. Du Bois, mocking, "I'm pleased to see how well you fit into such an elegant establishment, Ada. Did you bring the recording? Let's discuss the price." Ada, calm, "The price isn't $2 million, Du Bois. The price is clearing my father's name and having Julian Sterling turn himself in. But I'm offering you another option. Give me the documents proving that the real culprit behind the accident was not Julian Sterling, but a senior board member. Then the recording is yours." Ada had aimed not just at Sterling, but at the entire Sterling Group. She knew that Sterling's confession was dangerous not only for him, but also for Du Bois and the other partners. Du Bois might be willing to sacrifice Sterling to save himself. Du Bois, hissing under his breath, "What nonsense are you talking about? Julian already confessed." Ada, smiling, "Yes, he did. But I reviewed my father's case file. The negligence was so severe that it couldn't have been the sole decision of an operations manager, Nathan Price. On the recording, Sterling says, it was the board's decision. If I hand this recording to the police, the entire company burns. But if you give me the documents showing the board's role, only Julian Sterling burns. Ada, my offer is simple, a copy of that document, and the release of my frozen $1 million. In exchange, you get the confession recording. It's the best exit you've got, Monsieur Du Bois." Du Bois was cornered by Ada's intelligence. Sacrificing a close partner to save oneself, in the corporate world, it was practically routine. "Du Bois, tomorrow. Same time. I'll bring the documents. But make one wrong move, Ada, and that money becomes your grave." Narrator, Ada had made a dangerous deal. She now held not only a confession, but leverage strong enough to trigger corporate betrayal. Yet tomorrow's meeting could just as easily become Du Bois's final trap. Ada was stepping into the darkest shadows of wealth. And what would Julian Sterling do when he learned he had been chosen as the scapegoat? Ada had placed the biggest bet of her life. The deal with Monsieur Du Bois would give her the final key to clearing her father's name. But in a labyrinth of corporate lies, could a waitress really recognize whether a document was authentic? Or was this just another clever setup, Du Bois's last attempt to ensnare her? Du Bois slid the file across the table. A cold spark of victory glinted in his eyes. "Du Bois, the documents you requested. The board minutes from the day of the accident, and internal memos proving Julian's pressure to cut costs. Sacrificing Julian is the most logical step to save the company. Ada, and my funds? Did you give the order to release my $1 million? Du Bois, of course. In exchange, I'll take that damned recording." Ada maintained her expression as she examined the documents. In truth, she was waiting for a final confirmation from her lawyer Eileen. If Ada said, "It's very cold tonight," that would be the coded signal meaning the document was fake. Ada, clearly, the documents look perfectly professional, Monsieur Du Bois. And tonight isn't cold at all, it's quite warm. A fleeting wave of relief washed over Du Bois's face. Ada's use of the false code led him to believe the documents were genuine. With this tiny manipulation, Ada had tested his reaction. "Du Bois, you've done well, Ada. Now go live your life. And never again question a millionaire's tip. Ada took the file. Du Bois left the restaurant triumphantly, ready to destroy the recording device the moment he got home. The documents Ada held were real, yet Du Bois's plan was obvious: shift all blame onto Mr. Sterling, the man who had confessed. Ada wanted justice, but she had seen Sterling's remorse, his torment. She didn't want to leave him utterly alone. Ada, on the phone, Mr. Sterling. Listen to me carefully. I gave Du Bois your confession recording, but in return I took the document that will allow you to testify against the board. They've sacrificed you. They're going to name you as the sole culprit of the accident. You need to go to the police right now and make your confession official. With the document I have, we can take them all down. Mr. Sterling, on the phone, I can't believe you did this. Why? I offered you $2 million. Why take the risk? Ada, because my father already paid your debt. Now it's your turn. Pay the price of your conscience. Mr. Sterling, you're right. Julian Sterling was afraid of losing everything. But Nathan Price, he wants peace at last. I'm on my way. And there it was. 10 years of lies, a chain of guilt, and the ripple effect of $1 million tip coming to its end. Julian Sterling walked into the police station, carrying the board documents Ada had secured, and confessed, fully, fearlessly, to every detail of the accident that had happened a decade earlier. Sterling's confession, combined with the corporate documents Ada provided, was enough to launch a formal investigation against Du Bois and the other board partners. Her father's case was reopened, and the accident was finally recognized for what it truly was, a corporate crime. Julian Sterling received partially reduced sentencing for acting on his conscience. But most importantly, he was freed from the 10-year burden that had darkened his life. And Ada had cleared her father's name and fought for the justice she had dreamed of. She never touched the $1 million that was returned to her account. After her father's case was closed, she donated most of the money to a foundation supporting families of workplace accident victims like her own father. With the small remainder, she finished her university education. For Ada, the $1 million was never just money. It was a debt. The cost of a conscience. The restitution for a life lost, and a symbol of justice. Ada had used the power of that money not to enrich herself, but to expose lies and spread genuine good. She was no longer a waitress who resented wealth, she had become a storyteller who transformed wealth into purpose. A story that began with a millionaire's tip showed us this: sometimes the greatest generosity hides the deepest regret. And sometimes the unexpected fortune that enters your life isn't a gift at all, it's the first ticket on your journey toward justice. Remember, behind every great fortune lies a breaking point waiting to be told.